Hey, good morning and welcome to Spirituality at Ground Level. My name is Jeff Harrison. Hey, the reason I want to do this show is just because after 15 years or more of being in that spiritual space and then combining it with all the things that I've learned over the years, positive mental attitude, thought becomes form, all that starts to meld together. And I thought, what a better way to help bridge that understanding between people on the streets that maybe have never heard of science of mind and the center, and help be that conduit to help draw more people to this great teaching. I want to say thank you right away and acknowledge some people. I want to thank Dr. Joe for entrusting me to do this, Dr. James Mellon, Elizabeth, and the Center for Spiritual Living. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and do this. I also want to point out that I am not I guess I could say I'm a practitioner because I study the science of mind. Have I gone through many of the classes? Absolutely. Have I gone through the training as a practitioner? I have not. I chose to stay outside of that, and there are many reasons. Probably the biggest reason was I didn't know if I had enough time to do all of that and run my business. So anyway, today is a show about a topic that we talked about. Dr. Laura and I, if you ever saw this show, we had a show called Spirituality Uncorked, and we talked about we talked about a topic on loneliness, and it was incredibly well received and attended, and it really started to point out some things that loneliness as a whole. There are a lot of people out there that are lonely, even though we live in a time where being connected, we can't be it's like amazing. I can pick up the phone and in seconds be connected with almost anyone in the world. I can turn my phone on and do a video call and be connected to somebody with very little interference or delay worldwide. And it's amazing then to think, wow, there's still a high degree of loneliness. Now, I want to make this very, very clear. I am not a clinical psychologist. This is just some data that I've collected. And today we're going to talk about loneliness and really what it is, who it affects, what places on the planet probably have the greatest level of loneliness. And more importantly, at the end is how do we start changing that? And when we get to that point, it is not going to be, hey, Dr. Freud said this or Dr. Who said this. It's one of these things of like, hey, these are just some spiritual laws that we say everything we know and see is created twice. So if we're experiencing loneliness, wow, how is that? That is a mirror. That is a reflection of what's going on in our brain. So today's talk is loneliness. And what I'd like you to do is really be interactive because I really want your participation in this, and let's broaden it out, because the goal is to really overcome some of this and say, hey, if you are in that position of loneliness, what can you do? What does it mean? How does it affect us? And those kind of things. So let's see that first slide, Krista. So I thought, hey, let's go to the dictionary and let's get a definition of loneliness. And it's a noun, it says sadness because one has no friends or company. No friends or company. So, this is an amazing thing. I think about platforms like Facebook as an example, and we have literally an opportunity. They said on average, if you have a Facebook account, you have about 250 friends. Well, right there, you're saying, well, that should overcome loneliness. What's the deal? Well, we all know that we might have 250 people who have friended us on Facebook, but are they really friends? And how do you cultivate that friendship when it's someone maybe you've never met? I think it's one of those things where, and this is just a little tidbit in advance. I think it's one of those things where you say, well, how would I normally cultivate a friendship? What steps would I take? Would I just get their phone number or contact information and then do nothing? Is that what we do to create a friendship? Probably not. So we're going to dive in a little bit deeper. The next one is of a place, the quality of being unfrequented and remote isolation. So actually, if you think about this, there are people who enjoy being by themselves. There and there's nothing wrong with that. These are people who say, you know what, I love living, in the mountains, in the forest, wherever it may be, where it's hard to bump into other people. They love that loneliness. They love that isolation, and they probably find the joy in their life by not having contact. And I want to take that set of people and set them aside, because that is a choice that they said, I enjoy living by myself and I'm going to go there. And the group I want to talk about today is the people that are surrounded by people, whether it's virtual or real. And let's talk to those people, and let's discover, hey, loneliness, how is it affecting their life? What does it mean? And more importantly, how do we get past that? How do we start shifting that from being in a world where you're surrounded by tens or hundreds or even thousands of people, virtually or in person, and yet you feel all alone? Let's see that next slide. So the next one is, hey, as we talk about that definition of what loneliness is, how does it affect us? Well, these are clinical things that I got off the internet, and it said it could be clinical depression. It says a mental health disorder characterized by persistently depressed mood or loss of interest in activities causing significant impairment. And if you notice, symptoms may include loneliness. So, like anything, if you actually took a point and you said, hey, I am isolated, I'm lonely, eventually it could lead to depression. Now, I want to take you back to, and I'm sure you're aware of this. Many, many years ago, I remember in maybe it was high school or college, there was that experiment that was run when they said they took two baby monkeys and primates, and one was in a cage all by itself, isolated, and the other was with its mother. And what happened? Well, over the course of a very short period of time, the monkey that was isolated began to have disorders. It started picking at itself. It started hurting itself. It was neurotic, and it eventually went crazy. Now, that's a very inhumane study that happened, but it illustrates the power of loneliness. And with that, if we look at this, we say, well, what do we hear about people who are lonely? What's happening there? Well, we do start to see some of these things, these traits happening, like seasonal affective disorder, a mood disorder characterized depression that occurs at the same time every year. It's almost like the flu. We said, well, there's a flu season, and that's called race consciousness when we say, oh, it's flu season. Really, who decided that? And if you buy into that, there's a chance you could get the flu, or, it always comes this time of year. Well, who decided that? Well, if someone else decided, it doesn't mean we have to buy into it. That's their reality. It doesn't have to be ours. The next one is postpartum depression. And this is depression that occurs after childbirth. Symptoms may include loneliness. That's the example of the monkey, the primate that was separated and they were left alone. And this could be one of those things where a mom and a dad, there had to be a two-income family. They have a child, but the majority of the day, the child is left with childcare, and it may not receive. And I don't want to slight anybody who does childcare, but the possibility of them not receiving the same level of care if it were their own child may be less, and it could lead to this loneliness that the child is instilled with. Let's go to the next one. Let's go to that next slide. So the other is dementia, a group of thinking and social symptoms that interferes with daily functioning. Symptoms may include loneliness, memory impairment, and mental decline. So all of this is from loneliness. I mean, these are symptoms of this. If you notice all these things, there's this common thread, and this is why I want to talk about this: dementia, alcohol use disorder, and it could be also, substance abuse. It's that common thread that goes through all of this is lack of community or loneliness. Now, I want to step back for a second and think, okay, if we were able to overcome loneliness or create an atmosphere of community, does that mean when I see you and you're part of this group, let's say you just come into a group and it's whether it's virtual or in person, and now there is a bond that's built, does it help lessen these items like alcohol and substance abuse, dementia, wanting to hurt yourself, maybe even suicidal thoughts? Chances are, yes, because we're removing one of those building blocks that make those things occur. And today, again, it's I don't want to make it a heavy subject. I want to give it as really a pathway. So let's go to the next one. A pathway to not be lonely. So what loneliness does to a person, and this is more of a clinical piece, it says it can cause mental health problems such as anxiety, emotional distress, addictions, or depression. Loneliness can also increase the risk of suicidal death, decreased sleep quality. Chronic loneliness can result in difficulty falling asleep and or interrupted sleep. Now, this was March 10th, 2021. Not very long ago, like a month and a half ago. So this is what we're seeing. Now, if we think about this pre-COVID, when we were out and about and things like that, was loneliness a piece of the pie? Absolutely. But I think in the last 12 to 14 months, with even more of this isolation process, it's probably only exacerbated. It's like putting a little bit of lighter fluid on a fire. It made that blaze a little bigger. Let's go to the next one. So I asked the question and said, well, let's go. Let's say it says loneliness can strike. It says who is the most vulnerable to loneliness? And I thought for sure it was going to be a different age group. Now watch this. Loneliness can strike at any age, but a new study finds that young adults are the loneliest Americans, with people in their 60s being the least lonely. Now think about that for a second. I really thought, because I remember reading maybe 2 or 3 years ago about a study in Japan where typically it would be one of those things where when it would be the whole family would take care of the elder. And what's happening was the older people were now being left alone, and they could actually have been passed. They pass in life, make their transition, and it might be 2, 3, 4, 5 days or more before they're even discovered because they've been left alone so much. But this study says, hey, this was November 11, 2020, that actually the ones that are suffering the highest degree of loneliness are young adults. Now think about this. Why do you think this is? Now this was is this post-COVID? No, this is during COVID. So this was being done. So now all of a sudden, the activities, the interactions that were taken away is, they weren't in school. So they weren't seeing their friends every day. They were seeing it only. Yes, there is a difference between solitude and loneliness. Absolutely. And Linda, we pointed that out at the very beginning of the people who enjoy solitude. We're not really talking to those people today because those people have made the choice and they want to be by themselves. I mean, I think all of us, Linda, stop me if I'm wrong and please comment. If you wanted some solitude, we all want that time now and then where we say, hey, I need to step off life for a second and recharge my batteries. And that may be found in, putting your headphones on and listening to music and kind of shutting out the world, maybe reading a good book. In Linda's case, maybe going for a hike, going for a walk and being with nature. That is solitude. That is a choice. When it's one of those things where your life around you is very lonely and you wished it was different, that's the group we want to chat with. So again, the people 20 to 69, they did this survey and it was the younger people. So what we're seeing is their normal community functions have been stripped away. School, going out, going to the movies, hanging out at the mall, all the things we think of young people doing is now been removed. And without those social skills that maybe the people in the 60s have had, there is that, I'm going to call it that primate separation that I explained in the beginning. It can start to have an effect. And the other thing is suicide amongst young people is the highest it's ever been. I think I looked up and I saw the number had increased here in the United States 400%. Is that an epidemic? Absolutely. That is a problem. So I think the more we can start including and maybe getting someone off a device and helping them understand what community is, I think we can help out. We can start making those connections and those bonds. I'm going to step back for just a second. There were about 5 years in my life where I was a teacher, an instructor for a program called the First Tee. And I would work with every day, 5 days a week, I would teach. And one of the groups I worked with were homeschool students. And when they first came in, my first impression, and please don't take this wrong, I'm just trying to make a point here, is boy, these kids are really awkward. And it didn't click in my head at first, but they're very awkward because they had very little interaction with the other kids because they were the kids, right? They were homeschooled. They were maybe one or two people in their family were being homeschooled, and they didn't have those social skills set up to basically function. So when they came to an environment and I was teaching them golf and golf skills and core values and things of that nature, I saw how awkward they were. Eye contact, shaking hands, having a conversation beyond yes and no. And so my goal, my task was to get them to be more social. And in the course of it was a 6 and 9 week program. I guess it was 6 week program, excuse me. In the course of 6 weeks, I saw massive changes, not because of what I did, but because they were back into an environment where there were, maybe 8, 10, 12 people in the classroom at any one time. And when I saw them struggling with interacting with another student, I gave them the bridge. I was the bridge to say, this is what happened. This is how I'd react. You try it. Because then I would have them role play that. Could we do that with our young people? Could the people in the 60s, could the people in the 40s who have children who may be struggling with loneliness, could we help be that bridge to help them move into social? I also recall an example. I won't say their name, but he has 2 boys, and he was talking about how his 2 sons during this COVID period, and they weren't going to school, they were just learning online. They became very aggressive with one another. And these 2 brothers were loving. They weren't very far apart. I think they were about 18 months apart, and they were always their best friends. But they began to act out aggressively towards one another. And it was because there was no social release. There was this interaction. It was almost like a tribal warfare with them. So these are the things that can happen with loneliness. Let's go to that next slide. So I got to thinking, well, okay, in the world, where is loneliness the highest? And this one blew me away because I think of Sweden, like, wow, everybody loves everybody in Sweden. Sweden tops the list when it comes to the loneliest countries in the world. Now, it didn't say why. It just said they're the loneliest. I just never imagined that to be the same. Do me a favor, if you had to have guessed what country you thought was the loneliest, put it in the chat. I'm curious to what it might be, because this was surprising, because it is a more of a friendly. We think of Sweden, hey, they don't get into wars, the army, whatever it is. It's Roger Federer, come on. And so I thought that there's no way on that. Let's go to the next one. So loneliness, distressing experience that occurs when a person's social relationships are perceived by that person to be less in quantity and especially in quality than desired. Prolonged loneliness is associated with depression, poor social support, neuroticism, and introversion. Now, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to think about this. Have you seen this where maybe you saw somebody's children at the beginning of COVID, or even an adult at the beginning of COVID and then after COVID, and you saw, yeah, I would have too, Linda, definitely, just because of the number of people, I wouldn't have guessed Sweden. And And have you seen any change? Just this morning, I read an article and it was talking about how we're going to adjust and ease back into the world opening up, and how some people have developed a little bit of a I don't want to call it a neuroticism, maybe an introversion. They become used to living by themselves. They become feeling protected because the outside world seems maybe a little dangerous. So they're not making eye contact with people. They're not saying hello. They're not engaging. Well, as we talk about this, these are signs of what lead to loneliness by not doing those things. So you've heard me say this before. Every situation has a second side. So if we think, okay, it's a coin, and right now we're talking about loneliness, I'm going to call it, and I know this is not a word, unloneliness. What's the other side of that? Well, it is engaging and it is getting out. So let me go back to that real early statement. I said, things on the outside are created twice, once in our mind and once in the world. That's true with science of mind. That's true with science, right? Energy is formulated, whether it's electricity, it's water, wind, whatever. We can take that and reformulate it to become a power source, or it can be something that is negative. Well, when we think about how can we reformulate this so that we can stimulate the loneliness into not being lonely, I'd love to hear your piece in the chat. If you had to say, hey, there's one thing that I do, you do, to stimulate a friend, having a friend, what do you do? Do you call them? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on your age bracket. We tend to do a lot of texting anymore. Do you text? Do you send them an email? Do you share things with them, like whether it is an electronic communication? Like I have a friend, and Jack and we send things back and forth via email all the time. I only see him on the weekends, maybe every other weekend I see him. And yet I feel so connected because we've shared 4 or 5 emails, and we have similar interests. So he'll send me a video or a snippet, and I'll do the same thing as I'm reading an article. Say, wow, I think he would like this, and I'll send it to him. And that's creating that bond. In fact, this morning, you've seen her name pop up in here, Linda. Linda sent out an email last night, and all of a sudden it was like that universe was speaking through me, and I wrote her a response, and it was just my fingers were moving through the device, and I sent her back the message. She now sent me another follow-up, and she sent me a beautiful video. I wish I would have downloaded and put it on here. It's a beautiful video of a waterfall, and it's amazing the places that she goes and the things she sees, and then she shares that with me. Linda and I have not physically seen each other in at least 12 months. And yet I feel as close to Linda as I ever have. And I hope, Linda, you feel the same way. And it's all because we've done things that friends do. So let's go back to this whole Facebook thing and an average of 250 friends. And if you're lonely, I would suggest start taking some of these steps. In Facebook, go to your list of friends and pick out just 5 a day. 5 a day, and open up their bio and find out a little bit about them, and then send them a question about their life. Not just a like or a share or a heart, but send them a question about their life. And I'll use Linda as an example. Let's say, for instance, Linda was on my friends list and I didn't have that connection with her. I go back and say, Linda, I see that you live in the desert part of the year and in Vermont. What part of Vermont do you live in, and what season do you enjoy the most? What did I just do? I asked something about Linda to tell me about herself, and that is a way for us to start doing that connection. Pick 5 a day. And then the people who respond, what do you want to do? You want to respond back to them. So if you have 250, there's 50 days. There's 50 days. That's 2 months, really, a month and a half of communication you can have if you did 1 a day or the 5 a day, that you could start building that out. Because what's going to happen is you're going to say, I have 250 friends, on my Facebook page, but I have 38 that I'm close with. We like pickleball. We like hot dogs. We have dogs. We have cats. We write. We ski. Whatever it is, all of a sudden there's this connection. I can't tell you how many times that I'll be at an event and I've known somebody on my Facebook page for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, and it's the first time we've actually met. And I swear we know each other like we've known each other for 4 or 5 years because we've had this communication. We've just never physically met. It's really pretty cool. It's almost like finding a long lost friend, except during that period, there has been a communication. Could these be steps to overcoming loneliness? I think so. I love what Linda said. She said, reach out beyond electronics, go to the gym, farmer's market, out for coffee, window shop, get involved in a spiritual community. You know, Linda, all these are very, very good. And I love this. And I'm going to say, absolutely. Sometimes it's one of these things, and I want to honor those people who are suffering with loneliness, because we said, hey, loneliness is a threat of depression. And maybe to get outside the house to go to these events, when you're not lonely, very easy. When you are lonely, you feel like, wow, this is like me climbing Mount Everest and I haven't even climbed a molehill yet. I want to honor that and say, these are steps, right? You want to eventually have those steps, because it may be one of those things. Let's go back to that example. We're building that friendship in Facebook with people. We might pick out some people who are local and say, they like going to the farmer's market. Hey, would you like to meet at farmer's market now that it's over in in Rancho Mirage by the Costco there? And afterwards, let's have lunch. Now, when they go to this place, guess what? They're not one in 1,000 just wandering around. They don't know anyone. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of one of those guys. I don't like walking into a room and I don't know anyone. I feel very alone. Anybody else, or is it just me? When I walk into a room, I don't know anybody else. But if I walk in and I know I'm meeting 2, 3, 4 people there, I walk in and all of a sudden the light in the room is much brighter. The energy and air in the room is much different. These are spiritual laws, gang. We're building that community. And isn't that all about what Linda said, is build that community? And really, when we think about spirituality, it is being together, not isolated, but it's being together. And let's leverage some of these tools that are here today. And let's get back to being friends. Instead of saying, I have these 5,000 friends, but really, how many of those do you know? So today, I want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to go through your Facebook or your Instagram, whatever platform you're on, and I want you to pick out 5 people today. Just start, put them in alphabetical order and just go down the line and click their bio, read their bio a little bit, and then send them a question. You can do it. You can do a DM. It's called a direct message, and you can send them a message and say, hey, Bob, I just, you've been a friend of mine, it says, since 2019, and I've actually never reached out to you. I really apologize. I see your posts now and then, and I'm just curious. I see you live here in the desert. How long have you lived here in the desert? I've lived here since 1996. And what's your favorite thing about the desert? Could be that simple. Next. Hey, Sarah, my name is Jeff Harrison. We're friends on Facebook, and I don't want to make this spooky, but I'm just working on creating a real relationship or community. And I saw you're on my friends list, and I see that you're from Seattle, Washington. Do you live there full time, or do you just, do you love the rain all the time? And then you start identifying with these people. And all of a sudden, now, when you see their information online or they send information to you, there is that sense of belonging. And isn't that the opposite side of loneliness, where you don't feel like you belong? When we went back to the very beginning, if we said it's like feeling alone. It's like not being part of something. But if you're a part of a community, Will it help overcome all those things? Depression, anxiety, neuroticism, drug and alcohol abuse, hurting themselves. Will it help? I think so. Do we have the placebo that actually is the right drug, and it doesn't take any injection, it doesn't take any water and swallowing, it just takes making that first step. And what could be easier than saying, hey, I saw you on my Facebook page, we've been friends for a while, and I just want to reach out and ask you da 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 da. And you start doing that. Linda says, identify people you think might be lonely or isolated and reach out. Blesses you both. That is phenomenal. And actually, I guess we're going to skip the next slide because I was going to talk about some of that. Linda, first of all, I know you're channeling through me. So this is from us. One of the greatest things to do if you are lonely, volunteer. Volunteer. Because sometimes when we're lonely, what's the mindset? Woe is me. Nobody could be worse than I am. And all of a sudden you go to, let's say, and I'm not promoting anybody, let's say Martha's Village or Coachella Valley Rescue Mission, you decide, hey, I'm going to volunteer there. And these people who have reached out for help and are in those environments, you're helping them. And all of a sudden you start realizing, hey, you know what? My life isn't so bad. And I'm starting to help these people and they depend on me. They're relying on me to show up and help them do X, Y, and Z. It could be a number of things. And as this comes up, it reminds me of a story, real life, about 4 years ago. One of our clients, another client we take care of at a church in Sun City, they were talking about creating a group of people to go to a school in the East Valley and read and teach English as a group. And I remember she first did this and it was like, okay, no problem. I'm videotaping in the back. Well, then the next year she did it again. Well, they had like 75 volunteers. And now those volunteers were, geez, I'm starting to get a little choked up. Those volunteers told of the impact they had in those children's lives and the lives of their parents, just because they absolutely sat with them and read with them, read to them, and spent time with them. Do you realize that probably changed those kids' lives? They still do it today. I was crying like a baby in the back room because I'm like, wow, this is what community is all about. This is what serving others means, really, at the highest level, is you give of yourself and be a person of value to others. I just love that. All right, so let's go to the last slide. And let's go ahead and make it a little bigger. I asked that final question is, hey, how bad is loneliness? And one of the things we do in our company is, this is just a Google search, and you can try this, you guys, anytime you want. You can put in how to overcome, and what will happen is, if you see those items down below that are listed, loneliness, procrastination, jealousy, insecurity, shame, imposter syndrome, these are the things that, in order of the searches, are the most popular. So when I put in yesterday at 4:23 p.m., because I want it to be relative, I want it to be fresh, how to overcome, guess what most people are searching for? Just let that sink in a minute. They're how to overcome loneliness. What if you could be that bridge? What if you could be that conduit? What if there's 4 people watching live? What if somebody in this group were that conduit with 3 other people that tuned in today and says, wow, I am lonely. I have been isolated for the last 14 months. I do feel like staying home, but yet I'm lonely. I know my heart is suffering. I do feel a little depressed. I have some bad thoughts. And they reach out to that person and start being that bridge. And all of a sudden you got that email or that mail that message via Facebook and said, hey, I saw that we're friends. Wow. Could you be that person of service? Could you help that other person? Absolutely. Could you change lives just by you and being there for them? Because there are some people who are in a room of 1,000 and they're all by themselves. Those are the people we're talking about. Those are the people we want to reach out and help. Linda, thank you so much for being so interactive. I love you to death. So thank you so much. So I just want to close out with that. And again, I want to say, first of all, thank you for being here. I want to say thank you for the center and everybody there that allowed me to do this. This was a bit of a topic that I wanted to talk about because I know maybe, there's a saying, the teacher learns as much as a student. So maybe I needed to hear this. Maybe I need to do more of that. Maybe I need to get on those Facebook pages and reach out, because it is easy for me in my business to stand behind the computer all day long and interact with data and technology and not really have that one-to-one communication. It makes a difference, you guys. It truly makes a difference. So I challenge you to go out today, whether it's virtually or physically, and share your smile with somebody else. And if you don't feel like going out today, I want you to do one thing. Promise me you'll do one thing. Do it. Put it in the chat and say, I promise that you'll look in your social media where you have friends and you'll reach out to 5 of them today and just ask a question about them. Don't get crazy. Hey, I'm stalking you. No. This is, hey, I saw you were a friend in my group on my Instagram page, and I just wanted to say thanks for following. But also, I'm just curious, you're from X, Y, and Z. Do you also live in the desert? No, I only live, whatever. You start that conversation. In the marketing world, we talk about, hey, how quickly do you ask for the sale? And there was a thing called ABCs, always be closing. Well, if we think about this, there is a gentle progression in building a relationship, whether it's a business relationship or it's a friendship or it's a long-term relationship with, let's say, my wife who's out in the other room. And it takes time. We don't go right for the will you marry me question. Okay, the odds are there. You could do that. I might have to ask, 50, 60 or 100 times before I get one yes. But if I nurture that relationship, hey, would you like to have coffee? Hey, would you like to have dinner? Hey, would you like to go to a movie? Whatever. And you're building that relationship. So again, I challenge you today to go out on your social pages and find 5 people and share a question, be that bridge or look for that bridge. Be the bridge or look for the bridge. Heck, build the bridge. Because here's the thing. What's out there started here. So if you're lonely out there, this is that reality thing. We have to look in the mirror and say, wow, I'm responsible for that. I have to be the one to make a difference. I can't put it on my wife. I can't put it on my friends. I have to take responsibility. And you say, well, Jeff, you said, hey, go out there and reach for 5 friends. Yes, but guess what? I'm not waiting for them to contact me. It's not their responsibility. Maybe they already have the friendship base that they're happy with. They're not dealing with that. But remember, the number one search thing is how to overcome loneliness. And when we're going through something, we think we're the only ones there. And that's not true. It's the number one searched thing on the internet. There's 7.8 billion people on the planet. That's the number one thing. So I implore you today to go out and let's be the difference in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world. Go build a bridge. Thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend. Love you all. I'll see you next Friday on Spirituality at Ground Level. I hope you enjoyed today. Please do me a favor. Over on the side, it says to contact us. It's 760-346-4649. And also, I just want to remind everybody, services now at the center, May 2nd, it's this Sunday, it's live, and you had to call and make a reservation. There's a limited number of seating because here in California, it's still the same thing. All those seats are full, but you can reserve for future. We're going to be in the sanctuary every Sunday moving forward. I think there's some really cool things that have happened in the sanctuary. I think it's going to you're really going to like. And if you're watching live stream, you're going to see a massive improvement in live streaming quality, sound, and visual. It will be like you're there. But if you'd like to be there instead and you're not and you're local, call the office 760-346-4649 and talk to Elizabeth or whoever's in the office and say, hey, I want to be at the services on this and this date, and you'll be there live. And I think the limit is 100. I think that's the maximum we can have in there. William has done an amazing job of spreading all the chairs out. It's all safe. And what's really cool is he puts the chairs together, it looks like, based on the people who have signed up. So if you're coming as a family of 4, boom, you got 4. If you're coming by yourself, you can be a 1, 2, whatever it is. So call the office. Also, if you like the program, you like the center, do us a favor, think about supporting the center. This could be your tree of life. We want to nurture it. We want to water it. So think of your donations as growing the strength of that center. Thank you all. Yeah, Linda, I can't wait to get behind the cameras again on that and really do the live service. So it'll be a lot of fun. Please join us on Sunday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, live streaming, and we'll be broadcasting. Thank you so much. I think Krista, thank you for putting that on the screen. You're all set. Again, you guys have a wonderful weekend. I am out. I'm back over here. I've got another live program going right now that I'm going to jump back into. And in between, let's be kind and let's build some bridges. Thank you guys. Bye-bye. Take us out.